Chapter 81 The Truth. You are listening at Novelfull.audio. Yes, he was attacked and killed by unknown persons last night. Barbot's words were full of regret, and then he said, "Prince, please come to the castle and have a seat. We are preparing a welcome banquet for you. Your brother has just left, so let's skip the welcome party." Rhaegar shook his head gently. "Well." Babette was speechless for a moment. The middle-aged man behind him said, "Wells is a stupid guy. He asked for trouble. He is not enough to make us sad. A Targaryen prince deserves our fullest hospitality. Then take me to visit the castle on this peninsula." Rhaegar smiled lightly and slid off the dragon's back. The glutton is outside, and he is not afraid that the group in front of him will do him harm. His identity and dragon are his prerogatives, no one can ignore both. Rhaegar got off the dragon's back, and everyone cheered him into the castle. There is no trace of Wells' arrogance at all. Sure enough, the idiots are always the first to die. Those who survive may not be smart, but they must not be stupid. As soon as he entered the castle, Rhaegar seemed like an innocent and understanding child, urging Barbot to show him around. The castle was built as a peninsula. The Dreadhole Castle is actually not grand. In addition to its gloomy appearance, it is a bit intimidating. The overall structure is quite satisfactory, with a total of 3 floors, and is protected by a stone wall on the outside. After walking around in a circle, Rhaegar returned to the living room to rest. While drinking the juice served by the maid, Rhaegar glanced at Barbot, who was standing beside him, and said, "Sir, you seem to have something to say to me." "Yes, Prince." Barbot took the call immediately. Kneeling on one knee, he took the sword from the servant's hand, held the sword in front of his chest, lowered his head and said, "I heard that the Klebb family swore allegiance to you. On behalf of the Brun family, I also offer my loyalty to you and pray for your response." Rhaegar took a sip of the grape juice and pretended to be curious. "Sir, your brother just passed away. Are you already the lord of the Dreadhole Castle?" To swear allegiance on behalf of the family, only the Lord has this right. "Not yet, but my letter has been sent to King's Landing via Raven. I believe there will be a reply soon." Cold sweat broke out on Babot's forehead as he struggled to explain. Rhaegar put down the glass, shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, sir. I have no right to accept the allegiance of a lord, and you have no right to swear allegiance to me on behalf of the Lord. Prince." After being rejected, Babot became a little anxious. The middle-aged man behind him pulled him up and yelled, "That's enough, the Bren family has been humiliated by your brothers." Babot's head was lowered as he was being punished, and he did not dare to say anything. Rhaegar's eyes fell on the middle-aged man and noticed the clan emblem on his chest. Unlike the dead wood with hanging skeletons of the Brun family, it was a brown bear paw on a white background, surrounded by 2 brown linings. Rhaegar blinked, not remembering which family's emblem this was, and asked, "Which family are you from?" He didn't add a title, not knowing who the other party was. After listening to his inquiry, the middle-aged man let go of Barbot and saluted, "Thurl Brun, a knight family from a branch of the Brun family, whose clan is located in Brown Cave Mountain." Rhaegar thought about it carefully and suddenly said, "The descendants of the Brun brothers, the 2 Bruns conquered the Crabclaw Peninsula and are called heroes." "Yes, wise prince." When Solar was told about the great achievements of his ancestors, he smiled, and his resolute face under his short hair became softer. Rhaegar changed the topic, sat on the chair, imitated his father Viserys' demeanor, and said calmly, "Sir, can you tell me what's going on? Why did you invite me here?" He did not believe a letter inviting the prince, just to mourn Wells. When Solar heard this, he suppressed his smile and said seriously, "This is Barbot's invitation to you, asking you to save the Bren family." "Elaborate." Rhaegar became interested. Thurl continued, "The Dread Cave Castle is cursed, and the source comes from Wells' stupidity and greed. That ruined ship does come from Karth, but it does not trade with the Brun family. The cargo ship encountered a storm when it was returning from Bravos. It drifted in the sea near the Horror Cave Castle and was found and rescued by fishermen. As Lord, Wells summoned the captain of the cargo ship and the accompanying sailors. After a conversation, he learned that the cargo on the ship was valuable, so he sent people to sneak into the cabin at night, intending to loot it while it was unprepared. The plan was successful. The sailors and mercenaries were all killed without long resistance. Only a man in black robes wearing a red mask was left. The man claims to be from the land of shadows and is a Shadowbinder. Rhaegar's expression suddenly changed and he interrupted, Shadowbinder. Isn't that the mysterious existence in the rumors? The soldiers leading the team also thought it was a rumored existence, so they attacked the Shadowbinder and chopped off his head. Solar nodded, his voice very heavy. What happened next? Was the Shadowbinder cursed before his death? Rhaegar was a little excited and eager to know the truth. Solar hesitated and said, that's right. After the Shadowbinder died, the headless body turned into a black shadow. The shadow hid in the shadows, followed the soldiers back to the Dreadhole fort, and attacked and killed several soldiers that night. After that, the black shadow will attack the people in the castle from time to time. A few days ago, the black shadow disappeared inexplicably. Wells thought the curse had disappeared. Unexpectedly, the black shadow appeared again and directly took his life. Speaking of which, Thurl showed no sadness at the Lord's death. There is only a strong sense of hatred that iron cannot become steel. So, Wells lied to me. He knew about the existence of shadow monsters from the beginning. Rhaegar looked ugly. Barbat knelt on the ground and begged. He didn't mean to hide it. It is a serious crime to intercept passing merchant ships. I dare not. Since he knew it was a serious crime, he shouldn't have taken the risk. Rhaegar interrupted, it seems that both brothers are idiots. It's just that one will die quickly if he is brave, and the other will take advantage of others if he is timid. Rhaegar said indignantly, the curse was caused by the crime of Dreadhole Castle and affected the entire Crabclaw Peninsula. This incident was enough to cut off Wells' head 12 times. And you should think about how to eradicate the curse and make up for your mistakes. Should we report it to the king? That the fat woman who had always been timid spoke up. Rhaegar looked at Barbat and Thurl with an evil look. Barbat said immediately, she is my brother's wife. Do you really want to report this? Rhaegar supported his chin with one hand and narrowed his eyes. After running around for several days, Rhaegar was also tired of the trip to the peninsula, but he was a bit unable to ask his father for help. He thought that he, who controlled the glutton, could solve this trouble on his own. This is his own adventure with gluttony. Of course not. Wells made a big mistake and is not qualified to ask for help from the kingdom until we make up for our mistakes. It was Thurl who answered, the oldest and most thoughtful. After the first person took a stand, Barbat followed closely. It means that if the curse is not removed, the Brun family will lose its glory. Rhaegar shrugged and sighed, well, you guys have really made me tired. Today we will continue to update, celebrate the second day of the new year, and wish everyone all their wishes come true. Thanks to Pride and Desire for the 8,000 points, thanks to Jiangbei Jinan for the 500 points reward, thanks to Sesame Wan for the 100 points reward. Chapter 82 Notes of the Forest Witch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Bren family revealed what had happened, and the strange truth finally surfaced. Your family has come into contact with Shadowbinders. Is there any way to solve it? Rhaegar stared at several people carefully. Barbat swallowed and said cautiously, no, but the severed head of the Shadowbinder is still being kept in the castle. Shadowbinder's headless corpse undergoes strange transformations. Wells thought his head was not simple, so he ordered the soldiers to bring it back. Take me to see you. Rhaegar ordered. As you wish, Prince. Barbat bowed and led Rhaegar to the attic on the sunny side of the castle. The attic was empty and dusty. A circle of tallow candles was placed in the center, illuminating something within the circle. A pale head, Barbat explained, the curse can sneak in the shadows. If you illuminate the head with a candle, the curse cannot take away the head. The shadow monster came to seize the head. Rhaegar frowned and looked at the head, asking strangely. No, the curse seems to be unintelligent, we are just in case. Barbat said respectfully, thump thump thump. Before Rhaegar could take a closer look at the uncomfortable head, the sound of people climbing up the stairs was heard from downstairs. Thurl quickly walked into the attic and said with an eager expression, Prince, there is a large group of savages outside the castle, claiming to be your people. Rhaegar was slightly startled. I recaptured a group of free folk to serve and avoid being scattered and killed by shadow monsters. After replying, Rhaegar turned around and went downstairs, warning, keep an eye on the head, maybe it will be useful. Babette nodded repeatedly, yes, Prince. Thurl glanced at him with hatred and followed Rhaegar downstairs. All the way out of the castle, Rhaegar heard the noisy howls of the wildlings. Hiss. When the waiting glutton saw him coming out, he took the initiative to crawl on his upper body, allowing him to step onto his back. You go to the city wall. Rhaegar gave a brief explanation and got on the glutton's back to ride. Under Solar's amazed gaze, the giant black dragon took 2 steps forward and flapped its wings to fly high. Outside the city wall, thousands of savages gathered here. Most of them looked terrified, and a few of them were stained with blood. The glutton circled twice over the crowd. The wild people who saw the dragon dispersed quickly and fell to their knees. Boom. The glutton descended to the ground and shook his ferocious dragon head, his pair of green vertical pupils looking very indifferent. Rhaegar rode on the dragon's back and looked down. What happened? Why are you here? That a tall and clumsy figure stood up among the savages. Prince, we ran into a curse attack while searching for other tribes, and many people were injured. We saw your dragon flying overhead and followed. Trangle, whose shoulder was punctured and bleeding, explained in a muffled voice. How many people were injured, and how big did the shadow monster grow? Rhaegar asked in surprise. Trangle said, there are almost 100 savage warriors and more than 300 local tribesmen. The shadow of the curse has enveloped a large area of land. If the bonfire hadn't set fire to the local tribes' tents and forced out the curse, it would have been difficult for us to escape. Speaking of this, Trangle's ugly face showed fear. Can we still find the shadow monster? Rhaegar wanted to use the dragon to pursue him. I'm afraid not. The curse is hidden in the shadows and no one can catch it. Trangle said dejectedly. Rhaegar frowned when he heard this, and his vigilance against shadow monsters continued to increase. The only one that can definitely hurt the shadow monster is Dragon Flame. But the opponent avoided seeing him and only made sneak attacks in the dark. He was very passive. Rossel on the city wall heard it clearly and said worriedly, Prince, the curse is very difficult. If you let it grow again, the peninsula will never have peace. I know that the shadow monster comes from weird magic, and it will be difficult to solve it for a while. Rhaegar thought of a way to lure the monster. After thinking for a while, Rhaegar suggested, prepare enough food and water for these free people. Lord Sam will come after hearing the news and discuss countermeasures together. He is too young and does not have so many twists and turns in his mind. He needs these thoughtful adults to advise him. Noon, Sam Crabbe led a group of soldiers and hurried to the horror cave castle. Seeing the huge figure of the gluttonous man from a distance, he breathed a sigh of relief. Under the leadership of Babette, who had been waiting for a long time, he walked into the horror cave castle with great momentum. He learned that Wells was dead and the prince came to keep the appointment. Otherwise he would not have come. Waiting in the living room, when Sam met Barbat and Solar, they were filled with hatred. After hearing the truth about Wells' murder of Shadowbinder, he became even more furious. He was wronged by Wells in vain, and the other party even raked up and stole large tracts of farmland in his territory. This humiliation and hatred was intolerable to him. When the two sides were at war with each other, Rhaegar couldn't sit back and watch the internal strife end. Interrupted, when Barbat inherits the horror cave castle, he will solemnly apologize on behalf of Wells, double compensation for the loss of farmland, and 1,000 gold dragons. Sam was still dissatisfied, but for the sake of the prince and the threat of the shadow monster, he reluctantly agreed to compensate the Bren family. After all, Wells is dead, and fighting with the Bren family is not a good decision. After a lot of noise, Rhaegar and others sat at the council table, discussing how to deal with shadow monsters. Thurl said bluntly, 90% of the savages on the peninsula are gathered together. We can use some savages in the wild to act as bait. You black-hearted bastard, why don't you use me as bait? Trangle yelled. Ignorant savage, I am extremely gracious to let you enter the castle. Don't force me to chop off your head. Thurl was not to be outdone. Come on, let's see if Grandpa doesn't pick off your head first and use it as a wine flask. Trangle said and leaned forward. Shut up or get out. Seeing that the two of them had a disagreement and were about to fight, Rhaegar slapped the table and shouted, glaring at them displeased, "When is it? Internal strife?" Snort. The two snorted coldly and turned away. Sam, who was sitting aside watching the show, saw that the quarrel was over, stood up and said, "Prince, the source of the curse is magic. We should fight with the same power. Magic is very dangerous. Who among us knows magic except Dragon Flame?" Rhaegar glanced at everyone present. Sam looked proud and said, "Prince, you should have heard that my ancestor Clarence Crabbe was the legendary hero who unified the Crabclaw Peninsula. He left many incredible legends. For example, do you know why the Whispering Castle of the Klebb family was named this way?" Rhaegar frowned in confusion. He really didn't know much about this aspect of knowledge. He turned to look at the submissive Barbat. Barbat understood and immediately explained. "It is said that Clarence is extremely powerful and his wife is a forest witch. Everyone he kills will have their heads taken home. The witches of the forest kiss the lips of heads and bring them to life to serve as Clarence's advisors. Because you only have your head, you can't speak too loudly, and you can only pass the time by talking when you're bored. Therefore, his castle is called Whispering Castle." Rhaegar's eyes lit up and he looked at Sam with gleaming eyes and asked expectantly, "Lord Sam, do you also know this kind of magical magic, that the removed head can be resurrected and can speak?" "So strange." Sam coughed lightly and whispered, "We cannot repeat the glory of our ancestors." "You will not?" Rhaegar was disappointed. "Why don't you bring it up?" Sam explained, "Although I don't know any magic, the forest witch's notes recording the magic are still left in Whispering Castle. The notes are in Valyrian, and no one in the family can understand them. You are a descendant of ancient Valyria, so you can definitely tell the difference. Are you willing to share this precious magic note?" Rhaegar's immature face became serious. "The knowledge of magic is not rare. There is occult science in the city, but it has never been effective." As he explained, Sam got out of his chair, kneeling on one knee in front of Rhaegar. He said respectfully, "But I still hope to help you, the prince, restore peace to the peninsula and create supreme glory. Second update today, I wish you all the best." Chapter 83 Swamp Marigold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the sincere face of Sam Crabbe, Rhaegar had mixed feelings. This man is really persistent and swears allegiance to him wholeheartedly. Then I thought about it. If the forest witch's notes really record magical knowledge, not only will the shadow monsters be dealt with, but you can also try to learn some magic yourself. Just ask the world, who doesn't want to master weird magic? Rhaegar took a breath and said solemnly, "Master Sam, the content in the note is really helpful. I will consider your previous request." "Yes, Prince." Sam looked surprised and said seriously, "The glory of a hero shines on you. I have a hunch that you will be the new hero of the Crabclaw Peninsula." "Hope so." Rhaegar smiled faintly and said thoughtfully, "The shadow monsters are constantly growing, and we don't have much time left. It is important to check the notes of the forest witch first. Lord Sam, time is urgent. I can ride the dragon and return to Whispering Castle. Can you tell me where the forest witch's notes are?" Sam answered without hesitation, "In the basement of the castle. You can ask Yara for help. She knows where the notes are." "Very good, I'll leave immediately." Rhaegar focused on dealing with the shadow monster, and the negotiation ended. Warn Trengel to restrain the wildlings outside the city walls, and fly the glutton to Whispering Keep on the south coast. At full speed, the glutton arrived safely in just 10 minutes. The giant dragon landed in front of the gate of Whispering Castle, and the guards stepped forward to salute. Sam's children came out of the castle to greet them. Rhaegar briefly said hello and found the girl Yara. After explaining his purpose, Yara still didn't react. However, the daughter of the peninsula was not a pretentious character and led Rhaegar into the castle basement. The basement is divided into 2 floors, light and dark. Pass through the light layer and enter the dark layer. Giada. Yara lit the oil lamp on the basement wall, and the candlelight illuminated the dim environment. This basement level looks particularly gloomy. There are piles of various belongings and boxes. In the corner, there is a desk. It was crowded with skulls. "This is it, Prince." Yara spoke softly, walked to the desk, and lit a thick candle on it. Faced with such a strange scene, Rhaegar felt a little conflicted. Resisting the discomfort, he came closer and found a wooden box on the desk. Yara took out a key from a skull and unlocked the wooden box. Inside the wooden box is a thin, yellowed book. Yara carefully picked up the book, held it in both hands and handed it to Rhaegar. Rhaegar reached out and took it. As soon as he took it, the soft touch made him excited. It's not ordinary paper, it should be parchment paper. Let's go out first, Prince. Seeing that Rhaegar didn't like the dark basement, Yara said thoughtfully. Okay, let's go out first. Rhaegar did not refuse. As he walked, Rhaegar looked through the notes of the forest which, reading the messy small words above, Rhaegar frowned more and more. The writing is indeed in Valyrian, but it is different from the traditional High Valyrian language of House Targaryen. This is a mixture of common Valyrian and various dialects interspersed with common script and unknown scripts, written together. Thanks to Rhaegar's proficiency in Valyrian, I can barely read it. If it were anyone else, I would be dizzy after just reading a few lines. Natural magic, the flower of life, the whispers of the dead. When he walked out of the basement, Rhaegar had already read the few pages of the book. The book roughly records 3 types of magic spells and some knowledge of natural magic. He only understood one of the 3 spells. It's the whispers of the dead, where the forest which resurrects the head. There are 2 other types. One is the shape-shifting technique in which humans control animals. This requires talent and ordinary people cannot learn it. The last one is to sense nature and listen to the sounds of vegetation. It also requires extremely high natural magic talent. Learning these 2 kinds of magic requires a lot of knowledge about natural magic. Rhaegar had difficulty deciphering this book, and it was even more difficult to learn it. Fortunately, the whispering of the dead is relatively simple. It does not require special talents. It only requires special materials. Rhaegar murmured softly, this magic requires a special material, the flower of life. The powerful vitality of the flower of life is used to maintain the incorruptibility of the head, and the memory of the deceased is awakened through magic spells. Memory is not consciousness. This also means that the resurrected head is not the original living person, just a puppet who keeps talking and has no intelligence. The forest which makes many puppet heads in this way, asks them about their life, experiences, and obtains richer knowledge from them. What a despicable magic! Rhaegar's brows knitted together, feeling very repelled by this kind of magic. What he wants is the flaming sword and the fireball thrown by the staff in the story, or a way to kill shadow monsters, not evil magic that steals the memories of the living. No wonder the school rejects magic. This kind of thing is really depraved. Rhaegar was a little disappointed and handed the book back to Yara. Is the content in the note not what you want? Yara asked. Precious magical knowledge, but not suitable for me. Rhaegar shook his head. Having said that, he still thought of a way. Shadowbinder's head is still in Dreadhole Keep. If this head is resurrected, maybe we can find a way to fight the shadow monster. Rhaegar asked, Miss Yara, do you know about the flower of life? He memorized the curse of the dead. To cast this magic, you also need the necessary material flower of life. Yara looked strange, pointed to the family flag hanging high on the wall of the living room, and said, Prince, our family's emblem is also known as the flower of life. Rhaegar looked back and saw the vivid swamp marigolds on the banner. It was a golden flower, rooted in the swamp mud. This is the flower of life. I thought it was an ordinary swamp orchid. Rhaegar said in surprise. Yara smiled and said, the appearance of swamp marigolds is similar to that of swamp orchids, but the color is very different from the production environment. Some people believe that swamp marigolds grow in the mud and have strong vitality and unyielding will. So, its other name is also called the flower of life. Where can I find one? Rhaegar asked. Yara shook his head and said, swamp marigolds are extremely rare. They are only produced in decaying swamps. They disappeared from the eyes of the world more than 100 years ago. We all thought they were extinct. I will ride the dragon to search in the swamps of the peninsula. Is it possible to find it? Rhaegar did not want to give up this method. The peninsula is vast and sparsely populated, and half of it is swamp. If you ride a dragon across the swamp, you might be able to find the flower of life that is difficult for ordinary people to see. Yara did not throw cold water on the situation and put forward her point of view objectively. That's good. As long as it's not completely extinct, we can always find it. Rhaegar was very confident in himself and the dragon. Put your notes away. The forest witch is indeed a being who masters natural magic. Rhaegar reminded kindly, today's third update, I wish you all a happy day and long-lasting happiness. I saw the feedback from book fans about the battle between Glutton and Vormithor and Silverwing. The author has slightly improved it, and interested friends can refresh and read it again. Chapter 84 Shadow is coming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Saying goodbye to Yara, Rhaegar left the Whispering Keep on his dragon. The last swamp marigolds are said to appear in the Despair Swamp in the middle of the Crab Claw Peninsula. It is the largest swamp on the peninsula. It is covered by miasma all year round and has countless poisonous insects. In recent years, no one has been near the Swamp of Despair. Rhaegar believed that by riding the dragon across the swamp, it was possible to find the long-lost swamp marigolds. He thought so and did so. When he reached the edge of the Swamp of Despair, Rhaegar looked up at the sky. It's still early. If you can find a swamp marigold as soon as possible, you can return to Dreadhole Castle before dark. Hiss. Hovering over the swamp as far as the eye could see, the glutton roared and refused to move forward. Rhaegar stroked its scales and asked doubtfully, "What's wrong, glutton?" That the glutton shook its head and flapped its wings in midair. "Do you think there is danger in the swamp?" Rhaegar guessed. Roar. The glutton raised its vertical tail and poked Rhaegar on the shoulder. "Am I in danger?" Rhaegar was stunned. The glutton roared and flew over the swamp, aiming at a mud-covered area and spitting dragon flames. Boom, the dragon flames exploded in the air before they even touched the muddy pond, blowing a fishy wind and kicking up large swaths of mud. Rhaegar frowned when he witnessed this scene. Is this miasma? That he heard it from the bachelor who taught the class. In many places with poor air circulation, harmful gases accumulate and can easily explode in case of fire. The Swamp of Despair has existed for who knows how many years, and the accumulated miasma is extremely strong. Only the dragon flames of the glutton can detonate the miasma. Are you afraid that I might accidentally inhale the miasma? Rhaegar patted the glutton's back and said with some emotion, the glutton is indeed the strongest and largest wild dragon. He is deeply versed in the principle of seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages, and his wisdom is no lower than that of ordinary people. Hiss. The glutton looked back at the driver, his green vertical pupils showing some kind of warning. Have you been to this swamp? Rhaegar understood immediately. I'm looking for a flower with strong vitality. Do you know where it can be found? As he spoke, Rhaegar took out a piece of the crest of the Kleb family, with a lifelike swamp marigold engraved on it. Doubt flashed across the eyes of the glutton. He opened his mouth to hold the clan emblem, and flapped his wings to take Rhaegar in another direction. Its speed is very fast and its flight path is very random. In a short time, one person and one dragon arrived at the other corner of the Swamp of Despair, mud swamp formed by multiple swamps. Eroding pine forests. The miasma here is much weaker than that in the Swamp of Despair. The glutton looked back and growled at Rhaegar, as if to express something. Rhaegar looked down at the dark and corrupt swampland below and understood immediately. Take out a handkerchief from the bracelet, pour water on it, and cover your mouth and nose. The glutton snorted in dissatisfaction and lowered his figure. Its original intention is to tell the dragon rider to come down. The stupid dragon driver obviously didn't understand. The glutton glided over the swamp, its huge body covering a large area of land. One or two pine trees scraped against its belly and were broken in an instant. The ferocious dragon head turned back and forth, as if searching for something. Rhaegar knew it was looking for the swamp marigolds. The glutton must have seen, or even eaten, swamp marigolds before. When he first came to the Crab Claw Peninsula, Gluttony was seriously injured, so he hid him in the valley and left on his own. Rhaegar never asked where he was. Now it seems that 80% of them are looking for the swamp marigold, which is also known as the flower of life. Otherwise, its injury will not heal so quickly. The glutton soared, sniffing and sniffing, not bothering with the miasma of the swamp. Rhaegar rode on the dragon's back, occasionally catching his breath as it rose into the air, waiting patiently. Gluttony is already an adult dragon. It can find what the young dragon rider needs. Absolutely cold. Rhaegar felt a chill running down his spine, feeling like something was peering at him. Looking back, there is nothing but swamps and pine forests. Glutton, I have a bad feeling and am on alert. Since being framed and plotted on Dragonstone Island, Rhaegar's caution has greatly increased, the slightest movement will attract his attention. Hiss. The glutton neighed at the top of its lungs and lowered its head to continue searching, but the change in the rhythm of its wings flapping proved that it did not deny the Dragon Master's instructions, flying for a while, swish, a shadow tentacle stretched out from the darkness, pounced on the glutton gliding at low altitude like a snake. The glutton was already on guard. The moment the shadow appeared, he moved sideways and lowered his body to avoid it. Dragon flame. Rhaegar on the dragon's back gave the order almost simultaneously. The glutton sprayed out a dragon flame, covering the shadow tentacles in mid-air. Zila. As soon as the shadow tentacles came into contact with the dragon flames, they immediately made a burning and piercing sound and turned into droplets of black viscous liquid. Rhaegar locked onto the spot where the shadow tentacles emerged. Under the shade of an old withered pine. Where, after getting along for a period of time, Gluttony and Rhaegar developed a good tacit understanding. The dragon's kiss was aimed at the old pine, and the dragon's flame spurted out. The old pine was engulfed by the dragon's flames in the blink of an eye and turned into charcoal. There was no trace of the shadow tentacles. Swish swish, just when one person and one dragon were confused, shadow tentacles stretched out from all directions, like a closed net. The glutton keenly sensed the danger, flapped its wings vigorously, and quickly took off. Green dragon flames fell from the sky like a flood, baptizing the shadow tentacles below. In an instant, all the shadow tentacles were burned. Rhaegar looked down seriously, alert to the attack of shadow monsters. However, it took a while. The shadow monster never reared its head again. Glutton, let's go, it's important to find the swamp marigolds. If the shadow monster doesn't appear on its own initiative, Dragon Flame has nothing to do with it. The plan to resurrect the Shadowbinder's head is more important. Gluttony glanced around to confirm that there were no shadow tentacles, then changed direction and flew away. The most important thing on the Crab Claw Peninsula is marshland. There is always a swampland hiding treasures that ordinary people cannot touch. The sun is gradually setting in the west. The glutton flew across several small swamps. Eventually we stopped in a swampy area near a stream. The bones in the swamp are all caused by the miasma accidentally inhaled by wild animals that drank water nearby. Glutton landed in the center of this swamp. His feet broke some pine trees to use as petals. In front of it, on a piece of mud-covered bluestone, grew a golden orchid. Rhaegar sat on the dragon's back and recognized it as Marsh Marigold. Glutton, you are amazing. Rhaegar couldn't help but praise his dragon. The glutton raised his dragon's head high and glanced at the dragon controller with contempt, as if to say, "You ignorant little thing." Rhaegar was not angry and slid down its neck, stepping on pine trees stuck in the mud. I walked to the bluestone and held the roots of swamp marigolds in my hands. Discover rare creatures that contain trace amounts of magical elements. Conduct your own testing. The detection was successful. The flower of life took root in death, and this exploration mission begins. As soon as I touched it, the system beep sounded suddenly. Rhaegar's eyes lit up and he stared at the swamp marigolds with burning eyes. I didn't expect that this flower would also bring me an opportunity to explore. Open the system panel to view. Flower of life, exploration progress, 0.5%. Today's fourth update. I hope everyone enjoys reading it and the author will be happy too. Chapter 85 Essence of Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The initial exploration progress is very low. It seems that the quality of the swamp marigolds is not bad. Rhaegar had several exploration experiences and happily planned to pick the flowers. Swish. In an instant, a shadow tentacle stretched out from the corner and approached Rhaegar's lowered head. Rhaegar felt a strong gust of wind coming and had no time to dodge. Hiss. At the critical moment, the glutton's slender tail swung out, and the tip of the tail stabbed the shadow tentacle straight, cutting it off in the middle. Everything happened too fast. When Rhaegar reacted, the two shadow tentacles had already fallen to the ground. Rhaegar grabbed the swamp marigold, turned around and ran back. Shadow tentacles appeared behind him again. The glutton roared, opened its dragon kiss and breathed out dragon flames. Poof! The sound of a sharp blade piercing flesh and blood was heard. Rhaegar subconsciously turned around and his eyes widened. Not only did shadow tentacles emerge from the shadow in the corner, but a headless figure also emerged. At this moment, the headless figure was holding a steel awl in his hand, piercing the glutton's tail silently. The steel awl was pulled out, and strands of scarlet dragon blood emerged, followed by hot white smoke. The headless figure stuffed the steel cone stained with dragon's blood into his stomach, turned around, and remained motionless. Rhaegar stared at the headless figure. He could feel that the other party seemed to be watching him too. A strange feeling rose in my heart. Snap. The next moment, Gluttony noticed the pain on his tail and swung his tail to scatter the headless figure. As the headless figure dispersed, the shadow tentacles in the darkness disappeared one after another. Also disappearing together was the steel awl hidden in the belly of the unidentified figure. Leia quickly ran to the glutton and climbed onto the dragon's back using both hands and feet. With Swamp Marigold in his arms, he quickly gave the order, "Glutton, let's go quickly." That he felt that something was very wrong with the headless figure. Judging from past situations, shadow monsters are nothing more than unintelligent beasts, but that headless figure gave him a very weird feeling. It's as if you are actually facing a living person. Rhaegar felt anxious and urged the glutton to evacuate quickly. Glutton also hates shadow monsters. It flaps its wings and soars into the sky. Rhaegar breathed heavily, wondering whether the shadow monster had grown to the point of intelligence. Late at night, Rhaegar piloted the gluttonous eater and hovered over the horrible cave castle, not in a hurry to land. This exploration is over, please pick up the lost treasures. Until the system prompt sounds, Rhaegar looked at the exploration panel. Flower of Life, exploration progress, 100%. Finally done, just the right time. Rhaegar breathed a sigh of relief and was secretly grateful. After leaving the swamp forest, he did not return to the Terror Cave Castle immediately. Instead, they returned to Whispering Castle and informed Yara and the others to light the fire and send more soldiers to patrol to guard against attacks by shadow monsters. At the same time, some of the savage troops stationed in the same place were mobilized and rushed to the Terror Cave fort to assemble. I have been busy until now, just in time to return to Terror Cave Castle. Let me see what treasures Swamp Marigold uncovers. Holding the golden flowers in her arms, a ball of light emerged from the exploration and fell on the dragon's back. The light group was purple and about the size of a coconut. Purple. Isn't it epic? Rhaegar was excited and pierced the purple light ball. Bright purple light spots scattered, and the system prompt sounded. The relic was picked up successfully, under detection. The test was successful and it was determined to be an epic relic, the greedy stamina. Great, it is indeed an epic level, second only to the legendary relic. Rhaegar raised a smile. Immediately afterwards, Rhaegar flipped through the text prompts on the exploration panel. Take root in death and bloom with the brilliance of life. Rhaegar looked half comprehensive and frowned slightly. Greedy stamens. Death and life. Rhaegar looked at a cluster of delicate stamens in his hand and guessed that the method of activation must be related to life and death. After thinking about it, Rhaegar gave the landing order. Glutton folded his wings and landed outside the city wall. The savage army was gathering, and the crab claws came to the dragon one after another and knelt down respectfully. Rhaegar said simply, "Is there any animal that was just killed? The carcass would also be fine." "Yes, Prince." FSKY, who had previously snatched Rhaegar's bracelet, also became a crab claw. He ran to the bonfire and picked up the body of a deer. Rhaegar slid down the dragon's back and placed the greedy stamen on the deer carcass. The stamens flashed with a faint fluorescence. The deer carcass rotted and stinked at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into a pile of dry and cracked bones. Seeing this scene, the onlookers were frightened. Rhaegar himself was startled. I didn't expect this flower stamen to be so fierce. After sucking a whole deer, the stamens are still flashing fluorescence, as if urging the sacrifice to continue. Rhaegar also ordered people to fetch a pile of animal carcasses and throw them next to the stamens. As before, the animal carcasses were sucked into a pile of tattered bones. Fortunately, the stamens are finally full, the fluorescence is removed and the system beeps. Congratulations, the stamen of greed has been activated. You have obtained Essence of Life. Level, Epic, Purple. Function, the majestic vitality stimulates hidden talents. Rating, do not eat from non-magical creatures. The stamen withered, and a drop of golden dew squeezed out, falling on Rhaegar's palm. Looking at the information on the exploration panel, Rhaegar opened his mouth slightly. Improve life potential, such a magical ability. Noticing the special mark in the review column, Rhaegar shook his dewdrops and could only sigh in despair. He is a human being, and even though he has the blessing of Dragon King blood, there is no magic in his body, not a magical creature at all. He couldn't take this drop of dew. Go back to Glutton. The Glutton was also looking at him at this time. A pair of green vertical pupils were full of scrutiny. Staring at the dewdrops in his hand, Rhaegar strode forward, raised his palms, and said, with a smile, "Come on, Glutton, this is the reward you deserve." This time the hunt for swamp marigolds went to the Gluttons. This dewdrop belongs to it. Hiss. The Glutton stared at the dewdrops with burning eyes, and crouched and neighed softly, with the dragon's kiss close to the ground and spreading out. Get it. Rhaegar laughed playfully and dropped the dewdrop into the Glutton's mouth. The tiny dewdrops had no contrast in front of the abyss-like mouth of the Glutton, and were dissolved by saliva in the blink of an eye. Gulud. The Glutton swallowed in cooperation, shook his head and stood up. Rhaegar stared at it from side to side, trying to see what was different. Hiss. The Glutton was annoyed by him, so he rolled up his tail and placed him on his back. Turn around and jump over the outer wall of the castle. Well, it seems that the effect of the dewdrops has not yet taken effect. Lei Jia clenched his back scales, a little disappointed. The Glutton crawled outside the castle and rested with his eyes closed. Rhaegar was welcomed into the gate of Dreadhole Castle with marsh marigolds in his arms. In the middle of the night, the members in the castle had no intention of resting. Most of them are immersed in the uneasiness of the assassination of the Lord. Rhaegar walked into the living room. Sam, Thurl, and Barbat had been waiting for a long time. Sam was the first to greet him and said nervously, "Seven hells. You returned safely. I thought you had an accident on the way." Today's fifth update. The explosive update is complete. The Peninsula plot was originally a chapter that led to the magical tide and added the protagonist's first followers. It's a pity that because the author didn't control it well, the writing failed. I'm sorry. I will continue to update tomorrow and this chapter will be over. I will return to the plot of the Long family in the future, so please forgive me. Chapter 86 Shadowbinder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rhaegar refused his embrace and explained, "There was an accident on the way, but it didn't delay the trip." "What happened to you?" "This flower seems to be the emblem of our family," Sam asked, his eyes darting back and forth over the swamp marigolds. Rhaegar didn't hide it. "We'll decipher the forest witch's notes and search for the swamp marigolds. Let's talk about the experiences one by one." Several people frowned upon hearing this. Unexpectedly, so many things happened after being apart for more than 10 hours. Thurl stared at the swamp marigolds and questioned, "Prince, the magic has disappeared for many years. Are you sure the spell left by the forest witch will work? Try it, there's no better way, is there?" Rhaegar walked up the stairs to the attic and said expectantly, "The steps of Whispering of the Dead are not difficult. It only requires suitable materials. The rest depends on talent. If I can't do it, you can try one by one. The triggering of the spell depends on the mind." Rhaegar rejected the curse of whispering from the bottom of his heart, and he didn't have much hope that he could succeed in casting it. "You are right, Prince." Thurl was speechless and called Barbat to go to the attic together. Sam naturally followed suit. The eyes can never be far from the swamp marigolds. In the attic, Shadowbinder's head was still placed in the center of a circle of candlelight. Rhaegar stepped over a circle of candles and placed a swamp marigold on top of the head. "Instruct the servant to get some blood from the white dove and paint on the head according to the process in the forest witch's notes." Then he took out a piece of paper recording the translation of the spell, and a flash of disgust flashed in his eyes. Thinking that it was to eradicate the shadow monster, he still chanted it. "Atala. Gugino." Rhaegar's expression remained normal as he read out the strange words, as if he was reciting words from an ordinary book. However, the head at his feet showed no response. "Does not work." Rhaegar tilted his head, looked back at Sam and the others, and recited again. This time, Rhaegar narrowed his eyes slightly, united his body and mind, and recited the spell devoutly. Buzz. There was a glimmer of light in the swamp marigolds. At the same time, Rhaegar's reciting voice paused. For some reason, a rush of heat surged from his limbs, and his body temperature soared. The fair skin turned red instantly, and wisps of white smoke came out of the body surface. "It's like Coming out of a steamer, call. A flash of fire flashed, and the paper in Rhaegar's hand was instantly burned, turning into ashes and falling to the ground. Rhaegar's slightly narrowed eyes immediately widened, and he staggered back 2 steps. My body suddenly feels very hot, as if my blood is boiling. That he didn't realize what was happening yet, but the high temperature in his body confirmed that his feeling was correct. At this time, Sam hesitated and said, "Prince, I once heard my grandmother say that magic is a creation made by selecting people. You are of true dragon blood, and your body is filled with blood and fire. It is normal to reject this kind of magic that awakens the dead." Rhaegar looked at him suspiciously and said seriously, "Are you familiar with the laws of magic?" "No. I have never been exposed to magic. It's just that the legend of the forest which has been passed down from generation to generation." Sam shook his head in denial and said, "The magic of the forest which is evil, and even our descendants cannot learn it. Would you like to try, Lord Sam?" Rhaegar stared at the other person's face and stepped out of the candle circle. Magic is a disordered and chaotic combination that has long since disappeared from the world. He had expected that he would fail, and there was nothing to be disappointed about. However, Sam's words made him aware of the Lord's certain expectations. Sam opened his mouth, his face uncertain. "Old Sam, if you want to do it, give it a try. You have the blood of the forest witch in your body, maybe you can do it." Solar pushed him and said in a cold tone. No one present could see Sam's excitement. "Okay, then I'll give it a try." Sam didn't blush when his little thoughts were revealed, and he patted his belly and agreed. Rhaegar rewrote a translation of the curse, handed it to him and said, "Try it, my lord." Sam took the translation and looked at it repeatedly. As a semi-savage noble from Crab Claw Peninsula, Sam's writing skills are very poor. Rhaegar taught him for a while before letting him memorize the short spell. Try to get started. Sam walked into the circle of candles, holding the head and swamp marigolds in one hand and the translation in the other. The spell was recited from chapped lips. "Atala. Gugino." His voice was thick and dull, filled with excitement and anticipation, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. Soon, the chanting of the curse was completed. Still no response. Sam froze on the spot, his expression indescribably disappointed. Putting his head back on the ground, he sighed, "Prince, it seems that I have failed too. It doesn't matter. Magic has been dormant for many years. It's normal for ordinary people to not be able to learn it." Rhaegar comforted him and turned to Thurl with a wry smile. "We have to think of other ways." "Yes, Prince." Solar nodded, not looking too good. "The land of shadows, the tide of magic, the dishonest half-savages." At this moment, a hoarse, sharp voice suddenly sounded, making people shudder. Rhaegar turned around quickly and saw the Shadowbinder's head moving. The originally pale skin glowed with rosy luster, the eyes that were closed were wide open, and he was mumbling to himself with a grin on his face. The swamp marigolds, on the other hand, have lost their original color and their petals have withered and fallen. In the end, only the rhizome was left inserted into the Tianling cap of the head to maintain the vitality of the head. Sam, who was closest, was frightened and turned pale. He took a few steps back in panic and almost fell to the ground. Babette was the timidest, trembling and unable to speak. "Lord Sam, you succeeded." Rhaegar silently took a step back and hid behind Thurl. "Who knows what a talking head is capable of? He's had enough of this weird shit. I don't want to be contaminated at all." Sam stared at Shadowbinder's resurrected head and slapped himself hard twice, as if to confirm whether it was true or false. Then he moved away from the head and said anxiously, "Prince, is this head really resurrected by me?" He couldn't believe it himself. A few spells recited casually can complete the lost magic. "Who knows, maybe you have a talent for magic." Rhaegar avoided his sight and gave instructions. "The Shadowbinder's head has memories of his life. Go and ask the shadow monster how to deal with it." Sam nodded tremblingly, walked to the edge of the candle circle, and stumbled. "Tell me your origin. Why did the corpse become a murderous curse?" The head was chattering, the mouth was chattering, and the eyes were staring at the ceiling blankly, as if reminiscing. After a while, he murmured inaudibly, "The tide of magic is surging, depleted or vigorous. How did the curse come about, and how to eliminate it?" Sam came closer and asked emphatically. "I am a servant of the Lord of Light. The priest predicted the waves of the magic tide and sent his best son of Shadow to sail away to observe the changes in the world. Let's talk about the key point, how to induce the curse and how to solve the curse. Sam got a little anxious and kicked his head. Rhaegar and the others watched this scene and couldn't help but feel a chill in their spines. The head talking is scary enough, questioning the head is even more terrifying. Thanks to Fat for the 100 reading points, thanks to a digital book friend for the 100-point reward. Chapter 87 Red Mask. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The person who created this magic and the forest which are really terrible. They can even think of and learn such evil methods. Babat said in a trill. Unfortunately, no one paid attention to him. Shadowbinder's head continued to explain. A curse is carved on the flesh of the Son of Shadow. After his death, his body is thrown into the arms of the cold god to judge the sinners in the world. He is the hound of death, sniffing out the breath of the living and hunting for it, and devouring the shadows of the living. Only by finding the Lord of Light's token and returning it to his fallen servant can his anger be extinguished. Sam's face lit up and he hurriedly asked, "What is the token?" "Mask, my mask, where is my mask?" Unexpectedly, Shadowbinder's head suddenly became violent and rolled against the wooden board. They were yelling nonsense about masks and covering their faces. Thurl whispered, "Shadowbinders usually wear lacquered wooden masks and don't easily show their true colors to others." "Where's his mask?" Rhaegar nodded to indicate understanding and turned to ask. Babat raised his hand. "In my brother's bedroom, when the soldier was holding the head to claim credit, the mask was not taken off. My brother took it off himself and kept it in the secret room." "Humph, he really knows how to challenge for spoils." Solar snorted and urged him to find the mask immediately. Babat didn't want to stay in the attic for a long time, so he ran away as if running away. Rhaegar had no intention of paying attention to Barbat, and his eyes fell on Sam, who was circling the Shadowbinder's head. At this time, Sam trotted after the head, his bloated figure looking very clumsy, keep asking about ways to destroy the shadow monsters. The head screamed strangely, sometimes shouting the Lord of Light, sometimes shouting the magic tide. "Forget it, let's find out some clues." Rhaegar sighed and called, "Lord Sam, there's no need to ask." Sam didn't seem to hear it, and stared straight at the spinning head, his eyes becoming more and more fanatical. "Something is wrong, Sir Thurl." Rhaegar's expression changed slightly, and he quickly called out to the only reliable middle-aged man beside him, "Thurl is a true knight, agile. One step rushed into the candle circle, stepped on the spinning head, and slapped the unconscious Sam down. Bang! Sam was whipped around and fell to the ground unconscious. Solar ignored him, untied the belt around his waist, and tied his head tightly. Use a dagger to secure it to the board. After finishing dealing with the end of his hand, Thurl picked up the unconscious Sam and looked back at Rhaegar. Then they each sighed. They all saw deep helplessness in each other's eyes. Rhaegar was a little worried. Will Lord Sam be okay? "Prince, don't worry. Old Sam was successfully carried away by the use of magic. One slap can knock him out, and 2 slaps can wake him up." With that said, Solar was about to take action. "Wait, let Sam get some sleep." Rhaegar hurriedly called to stop. "There has always been friction between the Brun family and the Kleb family. I really feel sorry for Sam's respect for him to let Solar take action. Let's go out first and leave Lord Sam to his guards." Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of the Shadowbinder's head, which was still moving around. Rhaegar shuddered and left quickly. The next day, outside the walls of Terror Cave Castle, a large number of people gathered, 800 soldiers from the Brun family, 300 soldiers from the Kleb family, and more than 2,000 free people from the Savage Army. The 3 parties each stay in an area. On the city wall in front of them, a huge black dragon stretched its wings, and its shadow enveloped half of the castle. It is this giant dragon that makes them extremely honest. Rhaegar stood under the glutton's chest and picked up a piece of the red paint mask with gloves. The lines of the mask are very simple, and the eyes are narrowly placed, giving it a slightly weird look. After observing, he looked at Babat who was bowing to serve him and said, "Let's go." Barbat hesitated. "Prince, do we really want to abandon the defense of the castle and go to the wild to fight the curse? Did the castle stop the shadow monster from killing your brother?" Rhaegar asked rhetorically. Babette shut up immediately. After a night of thinking, Rhaegar decided to take the initiative. The more the shadow monster kills, the faster it grows. There is no time to wait. They have the Shadowbinder's head in their hands, as well as the red paint mask as a token, relying on the powerful dragon flames of the glutton. As long as the shadow monster shows up, it is easy to eradicate it. Thurl agreed with Rhaegar's approach. In his opinion, the dragon is invincible and can burn all evil. Sam wakes up from a coma and regains his consciousness. At this time, he was riding on a horse, holding the Shadowbinder's head in his hand, not daring to take another look. Rhaegar planned to use the Shadowbinder's head as part of the bait. Set off. Rhaegar rode on the dragon's back, over the heads of the wildling army, and shouted orders. The crab claws commanded their respective savages, holding various weapons, and followed closely with cheers. It is their honor to fight behind the dragon. Thurl and Sam issued marching orders one after another and rode their horses forward. The destination is neither near nor far. Choose an open space where two families are fighting. The terrain there is open, and the glutton's dragon flames can work better. Arrive at the clearing. There are also mottled bloodstains and fishy stench left by the bloody battle not long ago. Sam glanced around and glared angrily at Solar's side. Soldiers from the Kleb family lost their lives in these bloodstains. Thurl was dismissive. What does the war between the Bren family and the Kleb family have to do with Bren, a branch of his family? If someone in the fief hadn't been killed by a curse, his distant relative Babette begged him for help, but he would not come. The glutton hovered over the clearing and slowly descended. Rhaegar ordered, pour the kerosene in a circle around the open space. Yes, Prince. The soldiers of the Brun family drove the carriage, which carried barrels of kerosene. Shadow monsters are afraid of fire. Thurl proposed lighting a circle of fire in the clearing, with soldiers firing rockets to support it. Sam was not idle either. Several hooded prisoners were escorted out. The head he was holding in his hand was stuffed into the arms of one of them, and he said solemnly, "If you can survive, I will forgive your sins." Mask, my mask. The head was still mumbling for a mask, twisting around in the prisoner's arms. The prisoner cannot see the outside world, but he can feel what is in his hand. He was so frightened that he fell to the ground, feces and urine flowing out. His head rolled to the ground, not knowing the pain, but still muttering. Sam took one last look, reluctant and frightened. Rhaegar turned his face away from the yelling prisoner. The skull has said that shadow monsters stalk the living. In other words, the more people there are, the more likely they are to be attacked by shadow monsters. With nearly 3,000 people present, the shadow monster must have noticed. Strictly speaking, not only these prisoners, but everyone is a bait. It's just that they are more dangerous. Rhaegar made no objection. A group of prisoners, compared to having their heads chopped off, this method of atonement still has a chance to survive. When everything was ready, Rhaegar patted the glutton on the back and gave the command, "Fly." Let's look at the past situation. Shadow monsters are afraid of dragon flames and dare not fight against the dragon. The shadow monster suddenly attacked yesterday. Something must have happened to make it go out of normal. Anyway, he and Glutton leave the clearing, making it easier to attract shadow monsters. Neither one person nor one dragon went far, just waiting on the mountain ridge on the side of the clearing. Once there is a change below, Lei Jia can control the dragon to support. Chapter 88 Shadow Half-Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The plan was implemented and time passed bit by bit. Soon, it was dark. The three armies of soldiers and horses in the open space were eating dry food and setting up their own camps, as if they were not out to fight. Sizzle. As night fell, piles of bonfires were lit, and the savage army gradually became noisy, cheering and dancing together. Since you are acting as bait, you have to act real enough. In this chaotic environment, firelight and shadows intersect, an earthy savage song surround you. Suddenly, under the feet of a group of dancing savages, the shadows swayed and began to twist and change. The distorted rhythm of the shadows was a far cry from the dance steps. A vigilant savage immediately realized something was wrong and pushed his companion next to him with a horrified look on his face. Everyone knew what kind of monster they were dealing with. Immediately wake up from singing and dancing, or stop moving in shock or fear. Send the signal. Quick. Bao Lan, who joined the patrol, passed by and noticed something unusual. He took out an arrow from his quiver and put it into the bonfire. The tip of the arrow coated with kerosene quickly ignited. She drew the bow and shot it into the night sky above her head. as she shouted, other savages reacted one after another, the archers fired rockets into the air, and the warriors took out their weapons. At the same time, the shadows seemed to be angered by their actions, stretching and deforming wildly, swish swish, vine-like shadow tentacles stretched out, stabbing into the throats of those around them, taking away their lives. Spread out. The curse is coming, someone died, and the remaining savages fell into panic and retreated in panic. The shadow monster obviously has no intention of letting them go. An ink-like black figure crawled out from the ground, transformed into a deformed monster covered with tentacles, and attacked everyone. Light the kerosene, take out the torch and fight back. At the critical moment, Baolan lit rockets one after another, shooting at the shadow monster, and took command on the battlefield. She is a very brave girl. Unfortunately, it is not convincing. In the end, Trangle, who was a crabclaw, stood up and broke up a bonfire with a solid wooden stick, forcing back the raging deformed monsters, roaring angrily, "Everyone, stop here. If anyone dares to run, I will rip off his head and stuff it into his butt." As the 2-meter-tall savage yelled and roared, the nearby savages managed to calm down and stopped running and screaming. The other side, Rhaegar waited patiently on the back of the glutton, nibbling sour wild fruits to refresh himself. Suddenly, a faint firelight streaked across the night sky. Rhaegar quickly looked up, thinking he had seen it wrong. Immediately afterwards, clusters of fire appeared. "Here we come. Glutton, let's go." Rhaegar perked up and called the dragon under his crotch to set off. Hiss. The glutton had already been waiting impatiently. Hearing an irritated neigh, he fluttered his wings and rushed down the mountain, heading straight for the clearing surrounded by fire. The two sides are only a few kilometers apart. The glutton is here in a flash. Light a fire, curse and be afraid of fire, so you immerse your weapons in fire oil. Arriving above the clearing, there were chaotic shouts from below, and the faint firelight continued to increase. Rhaegar lowered his head and looked down, and at a glance he saw the shadow monster getting bigger and bigger. "Gluttony, set the fire oil around you on fire." Rhaegar was not in a hurry to attack and acted according to his prior plan. The glutton flew to the edge of the clearing, breathing dragon flames into the no man's land below. Boom. As soon as the green dragon flame touched the ground, it immediately ignited the kerosene poured in advance. In an instant, starting from an ignition point, the fire extended to both sides, surrounding the entire open space and igniting a huge fire ring that could light up the night sky. In the raging fire, all three parties were alarmed, looking up, seeing the huge black dragon hovering above. A sense of confidence rose from everyone's heart. In this war, they have a giant dragon. Hiss. Feeling the gaze of pairs of eyes, the glutton's green vertical pupils flashed with arrogance, and he held his head high and roared. "Glutton, dragon flame." As the dragon approached the shadow monster on the ground, Rhaegar's eyes were full of excitement and he gave the order. Boom, green dragon flame sprayed against the ground, streaking across a streak of pitch-black scorched earth, and crashed into the shadow monster squirming back and forth. The next second, the shadow monster was split in two by the dragon flame. The incident happened so quickly that people had no time to think deeply about it, and could only feel an unspeakable excitement. The people who saw this scene were extremely excited and cheered for the power of the dragon. Thousands of soldiers from the Bren family and the Kleb family, who were stationed separately from the savages, also came from a distance, led by a small number of torch-waving cavalry. They charged towards the remains of the shadow monster. Just when everyone thought they were about to overcome the curse, a sudden change occurred. The shadow monster split in two keeps. Twisting, the two halves of the body squirmed separately, forming two smaller, deformed monsters. The body surface stretched, and a black smoke-like shadow spewed out, covering the cavalry that collided head-on. Ah! The charging cavalry could not stop and rushed straight into the black smoke. Black smoke penetrated their ears, nose, eyes and mouth, killing them instantly. Hiss! The roar of the giant dragon resounded, and green dragon flames spurted out, cutting a shadow monster again. This time, Rhaegar noticed the strangeness of the shadow monster. The splitting of the shadow monsters was not caused by dragon flames. It's a matter of survival by docking one's tail. Any surface that comes into contact with the dragon flame will be annihilated, and a small amount will turn into a sticky substance and drip to the ground. By tearing itself apart, the shadow monster gives up the part that comes into contact with the dragon flame, preserving its larger size. What a cunning evil thing, glutton, strengthen the dragon flame. Rhaegar clenched his back scales and gave the order to attack with all his strength. The glutton lowered himself, dragon flames brewing in his throat. When the distance is enough, a large mouthful of green dragon flame pours out like a waterfall, pouring over a shadow monster like a flood. Zila Zila. As black smoke billowed out, the shadow monster continued to twist, and droplets of sticky substance dripped, burning up before it even hit the ground. That's all. The shadow monster has nowhere to hide under the dragon flames, and its size shrinks rapidly, and it is about to be annihilated. Roar! At this moment, a low strange sound suddenly sounded, setting off a gust of wind in the open space. Rhaegar looked away, his face stiff. At some point, the shadow monster that split into several pieces merged into one. The irregular shape seemed to be kneaded and transformed like mud. It forms a dragon-shaped monster with 2 legs and 2 wings. The monster's body was covered with twisted tentacles, and frightened human faces appeared on its black mist-like wing membranes. The head is not a dragon's head, it was an ugly face that looked like a one-eyed goat. Once the shadow half-dragon was formed, it immediately swept away the surrounding humans with its head and tail, roaring and pounced on the glutton. The glutton in the gushing dragon flame seemed to smell some kind of stench, and his vertical pupils were instantly filled with rage, staring at the oncoming shadow half-dragon. The shadow half-dragon appears to be a copycat of the glutton. The deformed feet were running on the ground, the wings were flapping, and they rose into the night sky with difficulty. The glutton gave up on the shadow monster that was about to be destroyed, and sprayed a dragon flame at the poor imposter in front of him. Boom! The dragon flame accurately hit the shadow half-dragon. The powerful impact smashed the shadow half-dragon's head into pieces, and the sticky substance dripped down, staggering and almost falling over. I will continue to update today. There are 2 more updates at 11 o'clock. The Peninsula plot has come to an end. Chapter 90 Mask conquers demons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With blood and fire coming from the same origin, and true dragon's blood, he is not afraid of the high temperature brought by fire oil, but he did a good job of forcing the shadow back. Shadows are just shadows after all, they will twist and dissipate when exposed to flames. It couldn't hurt Lei Jia at all. Hiss. While breathing, Gluttony felt the driver's emotions were abnormal. He looked back and saw a headless figure crawling onto his body, roaring violently. It burned the shadow half-dragon until there was nothing left, opened its dragon's kiss and spewed out a large ball of dragon flames in front of it. Then he flapped his wings forward, and his entire body passed through the green dragon flames. Facing the dragon flames, Rhaegar quickly put away his red paint mask, covered his face with one hand, and lay down. Wherever the dragon flame passed, the clothes were ignited, stinging Rhaegar's skin. In the gorgeous green, all shadows will eventually be destroyed. After breaking out of the dragon flames, Rhaegar immediately stood up and looked around cautiously. After confirming that the headless figure had disappeared, he sighed with regret. He took out a set of loose clothes from the bracelet and put them on. Hiss. Gluttony made a sound at the right moment to remind him to steady his body and swoop down under the dragon's body. Only the remains of the shadow half-dragon fell to the ground. Deformed monsters and human figures are still attacking living people, and the battle is not over yet. Rhaegar took out the red paint mask again and fell into thinking. The mask is a token, how do I return it? That he thought of the headless figure. That shadow is different from other shadow monsters, he is very purposeful, as if he is intelligent. Attacked him last time, piercing Glutton's tail. This time, he actually used his shadow to make a half-dragon, and wanted to take advantage of the chaos to assassinate him. Rhaegar had every reason to suspect that the unmanned figure was the true shadow of the Shadowbinder. A headless shadow, mask. His thoughts were spinning, and an idea flashed in his mind, and he thought of a possibility. Glutton, take me to those prisoners. Rhaegar gave a loud command, guessing how to eliminate the curse. After tearing apart the shadow half-dragon, the glutton returned to his senses and soared in the air obediently, while spitting dragon flames to kill the figures on the ground. He approached the prisoner in the center of the clearing. The other end of the clearing, the headless figure reappeared, standing on the body of the deformed monster. Control the deformed monster to chase the fleeing savages, plunder their lives, and fill the shadow of loss. Whoosh! A rocket shot through the chest of the headless figure. The headless figure touched the hole in his chest and turned sideways to face the direction of the rocket. there. A girl with brown curly hair was still knocking her bow and preparing to shoot the second shot. The headless figure twisted twice, turned into a shadow and merged into the body of the deformed monster, approaching her. "Come on, the dragon is coming." Losing the target, Balan looked at it suspiciously, but was pushed away by a savage man and squeezed into the crowd. Green dragon flames followed closely, shrouding the deformed monster. As the split body of the last shadow monster, the deformed monster was burned by the dragon flames and lost its resistance. The war is now coming to an end. The savage army, together with the soldiers of the Bren and Kleb families, resisted the surge of figures, and the flaming weapons coated with fire oil were very effective. Casualties were greatly reduced. Seeing a familiar face, Rhaegar drove the glutton to the ground and shouted at Balan, "Did you see the Shadowbinder's head?" He found the prisoners who had been killed, but the Shadowbinder's head was missing. "Just ask around." Balan struggled to walk in the crowded crowd and didn't hear clearly at all. Instead, another voice responded. "Here I am. The head is here." Rhaegar turned around and saw the ragged Barbat running away in embarrassment, holding his head with a sad face. Behind him, the two guards had long disappeared. Sam, who was tall and fat, waved his sword, sweeping across the approaching figures, and kept moving closer to the dragon. After finding something, Rhaegar's eyes lit up and he shouted quickly, "Smash it! Smash the head!" "Yes, Prince." Barbat thought he heard it wrong, but his head kept moving in his arms, and he had long wanted to throw it away. As soon as he heard Rhaegar's order, he immediately threw the head into the bonfire scattered nearby. Zila, as soon as the head touched the flame, black smoke immediately erupted. The blocked mouth wanted to howl, but could not make a sound. In the blink of an eye, his skin and flesh were burned away and turned into bones under the trampling of the crowd. Buzz. The scene fell silent. All the figures seemed to pause, allowing themselves to be hacked and slashed by the living, before turning into a ball of shadow and shrinking back to the ground. And near the bones, a headless figure emerged. In Rhaegar's sight, his empty neck squirmed, and a head slowly grew. The face was that of the Shadowbinder's head, but there was no emotion on that face, and it was extremely numb. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but how could the shadow speak? Things changed quickly. The headless figure got used to the appearance of heads, and the figures present moved again. Even the shadows on the ground began to surge and reappear. "Balan, shoot him." Just when everyone thought the war was about to resume, Rhaegar's order sounded. Whoosh. A sharp arrow flew with a red paint mask nailed to the tip of the arrow, heading straight for the shadow of the Shadowbinder. Snap. The sharp arrow hit the Shadowbinder's forehead, and the red paint mask also covered the shadow's face. All of a sudden, the red paint mask seemed to erupt with infinite suction, swallowing up the shadow behind the mask. As the Shadowbinder's shadow disappeared, all the figures in the open space disappeared one after another, turning into wisps of black smoke and blown away by the wind. The fragments of limbs left behind by the deformed monsters and shadow half-dragons could not be preserved. They squirmed a few times, seemed to be withered and dilapidated, and turned into powder. The enemy disappeared in the blink of an eye, surprising everyone present, still immersed in the hesitation of the battle. "Did you make it?" Seeing all the shadow monsters disappear, Rhaegar looked carefully, still vigilant. Hiss. Gluttony growled, moved his feet lazily, stretched out his wings and flapped them. It uses actions to tell the driver that the danger has been eliminated. The savage army and soldiers still maintained their fighting postures with weapons in hand, and all turned their attention to the young prince on the dragon's back. They don't know if the curse is lifted, however, as long as the dragon and the prince are still there, they will still have the courage to fight. After understanding the gluttons' meaning, Rhaegar was still a little unfinished. "I didn't expect that the shadow monster would be so easy to deal with," Rhaegar murmured, feeling the hot gazes from all directions, and realized what he should do now. Think for a moment. He stood up straight from the dragon's back, raised one arm high, and looked down at the expectant faces of the remaining people. They have rude savages, there are soldiers in armor, there are also nobles such as Sam and Barbat. Hiss. The glutton swayed its body and raised its back, raising Rhaegar's figure higher. Rhaegar stood on the devastated scorched earth, taking advantage of the baptism of the moonlight, taking a deep breath, and his voice was full of power. "Everyone. Thanks for your hard work. Now I announce. Under the dragon flames, there is no more curse." The childish voice echoed in the empty battlefield. Although it was a little hoarse, it fell into everyone's ears, but it was like the sound of nature. Oh ho ho, we won. The curse of Dog Day, you didn't kill me, I killed you. Long live the dragon, long live the prince. The joy of victory washed over every living person, and they all let out excited shouts and waved their weapons to vent their tense emotions. Rhaegar glanced around, an inexplicable excitement surged into his heart, and he smiled unconsciously. Without the help of his family, he defeated the terrible curse alone. This is his adventure, his first adventure with gluttony alone. My friend, we are awesome. Looking at the hill-like gluttons, Rhaegar gave him the highest praise. At this point, the plot of Peninsula has come to an end. The subsequent plot returns to the main line. The upper limit of Shadowbinder is slightly higher, giving everyone a bad viewing experience. It will be appropriately reduced in the future, focusing on night combat. There have been thousands of updates every day for 3 days in a row. Wouldn't the book friends express their gratitude? Please vote for me, please give me rewards, please read more.